It's Friday. Yeah, as the gentleman who used to occupy this seat and for whom this studio will be forever named Mr. Rick Howe, we would say, yeehaw. And we miss you, Rick. You see the Northern Lights last night, the Aurora Borealis? Well, from the pictures that I've seen, they look spectacular. Not sure if it's the way that my apartment's orientated and I had the blinds up last night as I was prepping for today's show, sitting in there, right next to a window, and I didn't see a thing. But I grew up in Northern Ontario, so I've seen the Northern Lights many times, but I'm kind of sad that I missed the show. I hear that we may have an opportunity to see them again, but I'm looking out the window at clouds, so we'll see. But for those of you that got to see that, wasn't that cool? We're going to dig into Northern Lights and what they mean when Alistair Alders, our weather specialist, joins us after in hour 3 today. So make sure you stick around for that. Thanks to Vanessa Vandenez on the other side of the glass for keeping everything steady as she goes, as the Navy would say, moving forward. Don't forget the Friday free-for-all is after 11 o'clock news today. Chance to discuss this week's issues. And we'll also reignite the great Thanksgiving debate. Vanessa is a turkey for Thanksgiving. She's not a turkey. I'm not calling her names, but she's a Thanksgiving turkey person. I'm a ham guy. Where do you fall on this internal debate? Turkey or ham? Your thoughts after 11 o'clock today. Well, the race for mayor of Halifax continues, and the latest polling data shows a tightening race as we hit the home stretch between Wayne Mason, who was on the show yesterday, and Andy Fillmore, who is sitting in front of me this morning. Andy, I appreciate you stopping by and spending some time with us today.
Good morning, and wonderful to be here with you.
Turkey or ham?
Turkey all the way, buddy.
There you go. See, I'm already in the minority as we're moving forward here. Andy's going to be here for the next 15 minutes. This is a part of our series that we've been doing for the last 4 or 5 weeks now, focusing on the candidates for the election campaign, and we're pleased that Mr. Fillmore managed to scrape a few minutes together for us today. Andy, I'll get right to it. I'm hearing from some listeners over the last few weeks about this during this race as it moves forward. Question I want to get out of the way right away before we get to the issues that are in HRM. The question of foreign interference, we're watching the probe pretty closely that's happening in Ottawa right now, and with those 11 current and former MPs who have been working with the Chinese government that are yet unnamed. Let's put this to rest once and for all. Andy, right here on the show, were you involved in any way with foreign agents or the governments looking to influence matters here in Canada?
Absolutely, in no way whatsoever.
So there it is. Now you all know, so you can stop emailing me about it. Anyway, thank you. Appreciate the answer. Let's move to the issues in HRM, right? We have a housing crisis, obviously, right? That's what I'm hearing on the lines here, and I can see you don't have to go far to take a look. It feels like there are more people that are coming into the city that we have places for them to live these days. The Trudeau government, the government that you were part of most recently, has some ambitious goals for immigration in Canada. As a candidate for mayor, watching what's happening here, do you think that we need to put brakes on immigration in the short term?
Well, I think I agree with what the federal government is doing right now, which is tapping the brakes and slowing the faucets. We need to have a chance for our crucial support systems like the healthcare system, like home construction, to catch up to our incredible population growth. I would say, Dan, that a lot of people worked really hard in Halifax for a long time to create a boom here. Immigration was part of that, and if we think back to the what people call the Now or Never report, the Ray Ivany report, they talked about how with our aging population and not enough working age folks to fill the coffers to pay for health care and that kind of thing, we really needed immigration. So there is a very much an upside to immigration as well. A lot of working age people came to Halifax and came to Nova Scotia and are helping, for example, now to build that hospital with the taxes that they've paid. But we do need to catch up, and I think tapping the brakes is the right thing to do.
You said back in September when we were talking about the encampments, I'm not suggesting that one leads to the other, but there are obviously homeless encampments in the city. And I'm going to quote here, the flag was raised above HRM that is attracting homeless folks from across the country into the parks and public spaces of downtown. Many, including Halifax Regional Police, say the data doesn't support that claim. Do you still stand by it?
Oh, yes. I noted that the chief's office didn't have the data that they were going to share, but I was talking to frontline officers, advocates, And interestingly, CTV did a report shortly after that news broke and went out and found sort of in about 10 minutes, found people in the encampments to back up those observations. So, but the bigger point here, it doesn't matter where people are coming from. The bigger point is people shouldn't be living in tents in parks. It's undignified. It's unsafe. The longer they're in a tent, the more their mental and physical health spirals. And the longer they're there, the harder it is to lift them up again and get their lives back on track. So the big question here is, why aren't we doing a better job of getting people out of the encampments, closing the encampments, and getting them into the care they deserve, the pallet shelters, the tiny homes, the shelters with wraparound services? And I'm noting that the province has really come to the table in a huge way in the last year on that. But every time the municipality opens an encampment, they're undermining the provincial efforts to get people out of tents, because people will often choose to go to a tent rather than a structured environment. So that's the work ahead, and that's a renewed relationship between the provincial government and the municipal government is what we need, and that's the opportunity of this election. And then we can get to work together, collaboratively, cracking this problem of homelessness in Halifax.
Andy, are you going to close the encampments as mayor when in November when you take over? Are they going to all close down, or is this a gradual process?
Yeah, it's a gradual process. So the first step is to stop the expansion of the encampments, including canceling the recent round of expansions that were announced over the summer into Point Pleasant Park and the Commons and so forth. But we have to understand people are living there, and until there are options for them to move into other options, we're going to. So the plan is to phase them out as we move them into the tiny homes and shelters and pallet shelters that the province is now providing.
What do you say? What is your plan for those who I've had conversations with in the encampments that won't move into a shelter? They're afraid of them.
Listen, there are all kinds of reasons that people live in tents. The barriers that folks are facing are complex. We can only imagine what it's like to be in their shoes. But I'll tell you that in PEI, they've had great success with managing this challenge. People living in a tent are greeted by a professional team, a healthcare professional, a mental health professional, a social worker. The person's challenges are quickly understood. They're mapped to the services that already exist between the municipal and provincial governments, and the tent is removed. So that's the kind of approach that we can have here, a rapid response team, and that's in my platform that folks can see at andyfillmore.ca. We have to do differently. We have to do better. It's not compassionate to have people living in tents. We must do better, and we can.
People are forced to go to the tent option because they can't afford some of the rents that are happening here in HRM. Obviously, housing is a provincial responsibility. We know that relationship between the current council and the province, testy, I'll say, at best. Should the municipality get back into the business of social housing? Should that responsibility come from the province back to the city?
I note that one of my competitors has a plan to do that, and there's no way that's happening without a significant tax increase. That's duplicating a bureaucracy that already exists at the provincial level, and it is very plainly a provincial matter of jurisdiction. There are things HRM has to do, though. So there's a role for each level of government in all this. The levers that HRM has is around how quickly and at what cost we can build housing. So we can rapidly change how fast it takes to approve things. I mean, approve projects much more quickly is what I'm trying to say. That reduces cost. We can open up more low-cost land for development. That reduces cost. We can remove policy barriers to innovative construction techniques like modular homes and flat-packed factory-built homes. That reduces cost. These are all levers that HRM has today. And when you supplement those cost-saving efforts with the provincial subsidies for 30% of your household income going toward rent, and federal programs like the Canada Nova Scotia Housing Benefit, you really start to make housing affordable. But partnerships is what makes this turn, and all we've been seeing lately from our council is bun fighting.
Your platform, you've committed to freezing the tax rate for 2 years. Everybody hates taxes. I hate taxes. Yeah. I'm sure you do too. But does that paint the city into a corner in these uncertain times that we live in by committing to something like that?
It does not. And the headline is not the 2-year freeze on the tax rate. The headline is we're just doing that while we conduct an audit on the way that HRM conducts services so that we get our own financial house in order first before we would have the audacity to go back to the taxpayer and ask them for more money by an increased tax rate. Council raised the tax rate last year in the midst of an affordability crisis on top of increased assessments. My position is we're going to figure out how to get cut the fat out of the budget, increase efficiencies, stop the waste, and while we do that, while we get our house in order, not increase the tax rate. And if we can, we'll lower it.
Is there a danger? And I'm going to ask the question again, Andy. You know, if we say, look, we're freezing the rate from this date to this date, and you know, the world is a bit of a crazy place these days.
Yeah.
Would that not put us in a bit of a precarious position if we're already committed to freezing taxes, and then, you know, a big storm hits, or we have a massive winter or something along those lines?
I'm so glad you asked, because it's really important that we clarify the difference between freezing the tax rate and freezing taxes.
Yeah.
The element of the property tax bill that HRM controls is simply the rate. The provincial government controls assessments, which is then multiplied by the rate, right? So we know assessments are going to increase. So I've never once in my campaign said that people's tax bills are not going to go up. I've said that the one thing that the city can control is the rate, and we won't raise that for 2 years while we get our house in order. Assessments will go up, so revenues will increase, and we'll be able to continue to meet the demands of a growing city, but we're going to do it more efficiently. We're going to be directing staff and dollars toward the frontline services that HRM residents deserve and are feeling that they haven't been getting.
Is there any areas that you've noticed that we can do a better job with that budget? Because I hear every tax season or every budget season, budget season, slip of the tongue, it's Freudian slip there. That being said, Andy, you know, I hear, oh no, we're squeezing it as tight as we can. You know, we're sharpening our pencils. We're looking for savings. And it seems like every year we hear the same thing. Okay, well, we've got this rate. We've managed to pare it down to this rate because we found savings. Is everything stretched too thin now, or are there places that the municipality can do a better job with its budget?
I think every resident wants the municipality to deliver as much as they can for their tax dollar. I believe right now, and we'll see that the audit, whether the audit bears this out, and I believe it will, that HRM is reaching out into areas that are kind of beyond their purview, beyond their mandate, and that's costing some money that doesn't need to be spent in that way. But the really big thing here, to use that word headline again, the headline is efficiency. Just using the development and construction industry for a moment as an example. When we're talking about reviewing and approving complex developments, like a whole new neighborhood or a complex mixed-use development with different kinds of buildings in it, those approvals can go on for years. They're reviewed by multiple HRM departments. Those applications are reviewed not concurrently, all in the same month, but like sequentially over many, many months and years. So the cost and frustration that all that adds is debilitating our city's ability to deliver the housing we need, and it's costing so much money. All that staff time, internal reviews, staffers only talking to themselves. We have a really talented HRM municipal public service. They know what they're doing. They want to do good work, but they need to. We're going to be more efficient if we can direct them toward front-facing delivery of service rather than kind of endless internal reviews in the back room.
Active transportation lights up my phones whenever we talk about bike lanes. Your thoughts on the current plan, integrated mobility plan, and is bike lanes or are bike lanes the right solution for this, or part of this solution today?
Listen, everywhere I go in this campaign, I hear about bike lanes. Drivers are frustrated sitting in traffic next to an empty bike lane. Bus drivers are frustrated. Bus riders are frustrated because of the congestion it caused. Delivery vans are having trouble getting where they need to go. The bike lanes are creating some havoc for folks trying to get with accessibility challenges, trying to get from their vehicle across the curb to the sidewalk. There is clearly a better way to be doing this. I think that for one thing, smaller footprint, narrower width, lower height of the curbs, that kind of thing, so that vehicles can pop up over the curbs. And, there are so many things we can be doing better. But what I hear time and time again is this comment about bike lanes in the context of the overall congestion and how we can change the congestion complexion of our city. And there's so much we can do. One thing is moving construction of road work to evenings and weekends like many other jurisdictions do. And the road building industry is all on board for that. They would like to do that.
Well, I know there'll be a lot of people happy about that. We're almost out of time, Andy. Lots of ideas here, but HRM currently has, and I put quotations around this, the weak mayor system means you only have one vote at council, right? Some of these, I think, would be difficult to sort of gain enough support to get a majority on council. Do you support a weak mayor formula, or should we broaden the powers of the mayor's office to the stronger mayors like we're seeing out west in Ontario?
I could work equally well under either system. I'm very interested to see what Ontario is doing, and in fact, the National Post had a good sort of 1 year in review of the 12 or 14 strong mayor systems that were put in place, and there were some really favorable results there. And they always do adhere to the powers always adhere to provincial priorities, which in our case would be build housing, get transit moving. So those are good ideas. But I can also work in the current system that we have, and I'm happy to. The mayor in the current system has a lot of influence. The mayor has the power to convene. The mayor has some moral suasion. But the style of leadership is what it really comes down to in either system. And in my career, 25 years of being a city planner, almost a decade in Ottawa, my leadership style has always been about collaboration, bringing people with diverse perspectives together, finding the common ground, and going forward together based on that. And that's what I do in the mayor's chamber, the council chamber rather, regardless of which system we have.
Platform available on your website?
andyfillmore.ca. It's there in all its detail, and there are several ways to get in touch with me. And if we're wrapping, I just want to make sure everybody remembers they can vote online now, and you can vote by telephone now until the 16th at 7 p.m. And all the directions on how to do that are at my website, andyfillmore.ca.
Andy, appreciate your time.
Appreciate being here. We'll talk again.
You bet. That is Andy Fillmore, candidate for mayor in HRM. Need to stop down and take a break. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Olstrand. We're back in minutes. Welcome back to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Olstrand. Hope you're having a fantastic, or as we like to call it, a fabulous Friday here in the program. Lots of stuff to talk about moving forward. And don't forget, after 11 o'clock today, we return to the great Thanksgiving debates. Are you Team Vanessa with the turkey or Team Dan with the ham? I'm looking forward to your responses on that. Please welcome to our program for our weekly chat, Mr. Tim Powers. Tim, how are you? Hello, Tim. Are you there? We're just going to stick you back on hold because Vanessa's doing some things that Vanessa does, and we will move forward once she does that. Let's try this again. Are we good, Vanessa? We are good. Let's try this. Tim, are you there?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, loud and clear. How are you?
It was my fault, not Vanessa's. I pushed the wrong button. So let me own up.
Wow.
Let me say this. Why can't you do turkey and ham? Why not both?
Well, that just would be too much for one sitting for me because and don't get me wrong, I like turkey, but I've just always been a ham guy because normally, everybody does turkey, and I just like to be a little bit of a contrarian.
I'm shocked by that. However, I like both. I do find if I had to pick, even though my allegiance is with Vanessa, because I've known her longer, I would probably opt for the ham. I don't know. I like ham with mustard. I like the ham. The turkey sometimes I find can be a bit heavier.
So there you are, Tim, undecided. You should be in politics, Tim.
Dan, I'll sign up for a lobotomy first. But
Fair.
Thank you for that, buddy.
Lots of goings on in Ottawa this week. Even though the Prime Minister is yet again traveling around the world, Pierre Poilievre got himself in a bunch of hot water.
Yeah, going after Melanie Joly for being, in his view, too supportive of Hamas. Although I don't know how difficult that will be for him. I think there's a large community of people who are okay with him taking that approach, although the style of the approach. And then, of course, the comments about what he would like to see done with Iran. Again, I think, Dan, he's unafraid to push the envelope a little bit, and whether it has blowback for him, we shall see. Do people start to question, his temperament as prime minister with some of these statements? Maybe there are people who want that temperament as prime minister. It's different. It's hard to really evaluate Pierre Poilievre through the lens we have evaluated other prime ministers because of the mood of the nation at the moment.
I think it plays well with his base, and these days, with the lead that he has in the polls, I think that he can pretty much say anything he wants, and I don't think anything's going to stick at this point.
Not right now, but you do have to think about it going forward. I mean, Stephen Harper, if people step back in his early days as both leader of the Conservative Party and even the Canadian Alliance, he pushed the envelope a little bit too and course corrected over time. I mean, we in Atlantic Canada well remember, which hurt him for a while, the culture of defeat comment, and people will still trot that out from time to time. That was arguably less offensive unless you were an Atlantic Canadian or less controversial, to be more precise, than some of the things that Poilievre has chosen to say. But I think, on the issue of Iran, there are a lot of people who maybe want a leader to say that. Whether they want a leader to fulfill that action is a whole other discussion.
Prime Minister calling on the provinces and the territories to hurry up and sign on to pharmacare as soon as possible. I think the health minister said that they hope to have everybody on board by next spring. Is that telling that maybe, they just want to get this wrapped up before we go to the polls?
That's about as you likely eating Vanessa's turkey that she's kindly offering people. Look at it. We have examples. It takes time, right? Like childcare. There were a lot of people who were resistant, and it took them, a year and a half, 2 years to do it. I can't. There are all the premiers, for the most part, are running away from the Trudeau government. I don't know how significant pharmacare is in certain jurisdictions. Maybe in our world of Atlantic Canada, some of the premiers may be more inclined to bring it forward because of challenges people may have to accessing certain types of drugs. But yeah, he's dreaming in Technicolor if he thinks, the health minister, that all 10 provinces are going to do this by the spring.
Todd talks about this a lot when he's in this chair, and that's the travel itinerary for the Prime Minister. He's at the ASEAN, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations Summit now. He was, talking AI in France earlier. This guy likes to travel. Does that play well with Canadians?
I don't think right now it does, right? It looks like all prime ministers, all leaders, they need to meet their peers. They need to do all of that. But I think when you're towards the end of your term, it looks like you're not really connected with the country, and, it's easy for others to create the impression you'd rather be out of it. It doesn't necessarily play well. The fact that, the government is pushing the story today that the Prime Minister met with the Prime Minister of India, and they had a stern conversation, my words, not theirs, but it was something to that effect. Yeah, that may play in a couple of communities, but a lot of Canadians, as we head into Thanksgiving this weekend, will probably start with, oh, yeah, Trudeau's away again. He was in New York, and now he's in Asia. Though apparently he's cut his trip to Germany and another trip he had and is coming back. So whether that takes away the gripe, I don't know.
How do you think that conversation with the Prime Minister of India went, considering the recent politics between the two?
Probably like an intense conversation at the Liquor Dome between an overserved patron and a bouncer at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm guessing, maybe with the same language. Not saying that I've been on either side of that conversation ever, Dan.
Not speaking from experience.
Exactly.
Tensions are still high between the two countries, and I wonder if this smooths things over or if it makes it worse.
I don't think it's going to smooth things over, right? I mean, Canada has been very public in its condemnation of India, talking about an assassination, as you know, that happened, and alleging that India was involved in that. The whole foreign interference inquiry has not shied away from calling out India. So I don't think the Indian leader, Mr. Modi, is going to be super thrilled with Justin Trudeau either.
Tim, the last question and the most important question of the week. Did you see the firing of Robert Saleh?
I knew it. We were going to get to Robert Saleh. You've made my day, Dan. Listen.
I have not heard a peep from Todd all week, so I'm not sure if he's just that disappointed or if he's just doing what he should be doing and disconnecting and recovering.
Todd was so excited when Hard Knocks went there and Rodgers didn't have his Achilles injury, and you had Robert Saleh and Rodgers. Oh, yeah, we're going to kick ass. We're going to win the Super Bowl. Robert Saleh would be on EI if he were in our part of the world right now, though. No, he probably made too much with the severance to qualify. That's Todd's hero, Aaron Rodgers. Todd, get up, get out of bed, fix this, man, or stay in bed and accept when you recover, the Jets are still going to suck.
Tim, I appreciate it. Have a happy Thanksgiving.
And you enjoy your ham, Dan.
I'll do my best. That is Tim Powers, Summa Strategies and Abacus Data. Oh, boy, the Jets. They're in trouble. We need to stop down. When we come back, a conversation with Rogue. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Olstrand. We're back in minutes. Welcome back to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Olstrand. Hope you're having a fantastic day. If you go onto Google and you pump in our next guest's name, you get this big official is a Canadian actress and politician who was served as a member of Parliament in the riding of Cumberland-Colchester in the House of Commons and a member of the Liberal Party before. Anyway, but when we have a conversation with our next guest, to me, it's Rogue.
Thanks, Sugar. It's great to be here.
Oh, I am so glad to have Lenore Zan into the studio today. And if you don't know who she is, yes, she was a politician. Yeah, she still lives in Truro. And we're going to talk about her commute to work every day. But she's also the voice of Rogue, for crying out loud.
Well, at least there's some space between us, so I don't have to touch you and drain you of all your life force.
Cool. So let's start at the beginning. And the reason why she's here is, well, A, she's a Blue Noser, and Blue Nosers like to come here. But two, is that she has been busy over the last couple of years putting thoughts onto paper and is out with a book, so you can read it. It's called A Rogue's Tale, which is fantastic.
Thank you.
Lenore, tell me a little bit. I ask authors this a lot because, being a failed writer myself, I know that these things they're like your children. And why did you decide that it was time to put pen to paper and tell the story?
Well, thanks for that question. I've been writing it for 2.5 years. I was busy for 12 years as an elected official. And anybody who doesn't know what it's like, believe me, it's like you don't have time to think. You wake up and you just go to work, dealing with issues one after the other. So people had said to me for many years, Lenore, you need to write a book. You've had so many incredible experiences. You've had 10 lives in one. Why don't you write a memoir? But I never had time because I was too busy living it. I was too busy living and working. But once I stopped being a politician after 12 years, I suddenly had some time on my hands. And I thought, now's the time. Now's the time to catch up and talk about all the wonderful, wild, woolly things that have happened in my life, including some of the more painful experiences.
And memoirs tend to get that way. And sometimes, they're very personal, right?
Yes.
And sometimes we like to hold on to some of those pain points because, they hurt, right? Tell me a little bit about the process of writing that part and how that experience was for you.
Well, I found I was traveling a lot because once I got X-Men 97 and we rebooted the show, Marvel rebooted the show, brought me back to play a superhero again. I was on a lot of planes, and I found that I can write on planes. I get in the zone because nobody can really bother you. There's no phones. For most people, there's no phones. So I can just get right into the zone. But I discovered that it was time for me to tell some of the things I haven't really looked at. And some of those things, I think, contributed to my alcoholism. I got sober 28 years ago.
Awesome.
Yeah. One day at a time.
Mm-hmm.
It's changed my life, obviously. It's saved my life. And I know there are a lot of people out there who are hurting still, who are suffering from addictions of one sort or another. And there are many, behavioral ones as well as substances. So I felt like it was time to talk about that and try and help others who might be having those struggles and help them try to find a place where they could get relief for their addiction by becoming clean and sober.
Some people will tell me when they write those difficult stories that it's almost cathartic. It actually is part of their healing process. Did you feel that?
Absolutely, yes. And I go to 12-step meetings, and in 12-step meetings we talk about our experience, strength, and hope. And in this book, I felt like it was time to put it down in writing. I also talk about sexual assault, which I hadn't really addressed. And, there are many people out there who keep things to themselves. In the book, I talk about it, and I say, after it happened to me, I thought immediately like, oh, this is just my body. It didn't really happen to me. It's just my body. And I would try to sweep it under the rug. That was 30 years ago. And when you sweep enough things under the rug and you don't want to look at them and you don't want to admit that they even happened, eventually, if you get some more painful experiences that you try to sweep under the rug, when you pick up the rug and you look underneath it, there are all these ugly eyes looking at you. And that's when you go, holy moly, I need to clean house.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
The Me Too movement, when these stories started to come out into the public eye, you shared during that time. Do you think that it's made a change? Do you think that the business that you're now still involved in, I guess, have we noticed a change? Have you noticed a change in the way things work?
Yeah, I think things are a lot better. In the book, one of the things that happened to me happened when I was just 19, and I'd gone off to Edmonton to play Marilyn Monroe in a rock opera on the life of Marilyn Monroe. And the director of the show started coming on to me and calling me and telling me he missed me and asking me what I was doing. And it was really awful. I didn't have anyone to go to at that time. I didn't know who to tell. These days, you just have to call the union. You call the union. There are people there that they're on top of it. But back in the day, we all kind of just put up with it and pretended like it wasn't happening, which sticks with you and it hurts you in the end. Because if you don't deal with your all of the traumatic experiences that happen to you, it builds up, and then you can, it might turn out to be something like trying to use alcohol or drugs or other
as an
kinds
escape,
of behavior.
right?
Yes, and as a way to kind of like cover the pain. And I found that that's what I did. And I don't want other people to have to feel that way, that they have to do that as well, just to try not to feel anything.
Well, thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you.
We were talking before we came onto the air. The Rogue thing. You're still doing the X-Men series. Season 3 is underway, right?
Yeah. They're writing season 3, and I've already finished season 2. I recorded all of season 1 here in Halifax, and season 2 part of it in Halifax, part of it in LA.
So tell me about the commute. You're still living in Truro.
Yeah.
People complain about the commute from Clayton Park to downtown Halifax. Your commute is from Truro to Los Angeles. Tell me a little bit about that and the vibe in LA.
Well, my goodness, the show came out in March, and we're all flown in there for the opening, for the premiere at the El Capitan, which is a beautiful old cinema right in Hollywood. There were 1,500 screaming fans, X-Men fans, who've been waiting for 30 years for the show to come back. And that was how it started, and then it just took off. We got 100% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes, 99% approval rating on IMDb, and the fans were just salivating. Every Wednesday, the show came out. There are 10 episodes, and each day I would watch online to see what the fan reaction was, and they went crazy. people have been stopping us in the street, talking to us, telling us that we've changed their lives, that we made their childhood. A lot of people who dealt with bullying or abuse, people on the autism spectrum, all kinds of folks have just said that X-Men made them feel like it's okay to be different and that we're all in this together. And that makes me feel like I'm doing something really good. Because that's why I went into politics in the first place. Try to make life better for people, make people feel happy to be alive. Because God knows it's short. So we need to, try and enjoy it as much as we possibly can. And so whether it's politics or whether it's putting a smile on children's faces and making adults feel like, wow, I know that I am who I am because of this show that meant so much to me. And now they're introducing their children to
it, right?
Yeah.
It's cross-generational.
It is. We get 3 generations of families coming, and they get all dressed up, and they come to the Comic-Cons, and it's so nice to meet them all. I just flew in from Los Angeles last night. Long flight. But the good thing is that when you're writing, I flew to Australia at Christmas to see my family there because my father had just passed away and I wanted to go and see the Australian family. And I wrote 4 chapters in the 16-hour flight from LA to Sydney, and then I wrote 4 chapters on the way back. So I like this. I really like this, getting in the zone of flying and writing.
You can work from home-ish, right?
Yes,
you can work wherever you want to work from. We've heard season 3's in the works. Is that it? Is there more?
I'm hoping that there'll be more. We think there probably will be because the show's so popular and there are so many more stories to tell. It's based on the comic books, and the comic books have been going for like 60 years.
Yeah, no doubt, right? So there's lots of content to work on.
Exactly. And I did a couple of movies while I was there, too. I did an animated feature film called Space Bears about little bears in outer space who go around to dying planets and try to teach their inhabitants to protect and preserve the environment.
Cool.
So it's kind of right in my ballpark.
Right? You're in the wheelhouse.
Yes. And then also I did a movie called The Legend of the White Dragon with Jason David Frank, who was the Green Power Ranger, and he passed away of suicide, sadly, a couple of years ago, so it's his last film. And then I also, this next week, I start shooting a new TV series for Sci-Fi and NBC that's shooting in New Brunswick called Revival, and I have a recurring role on that. So it's based on an old comic book series, a horror comic book series called
Certainly
Revival.
Busy, right?
Yeah. I love it, but I love being home.
Right?
It's so nice to be back home and Thanksgiving and see my family, see my mom.
2 more questions. 1, do you miss politics?
Sometimes.
Do you follow it? Do you still follow
I do.
Yeah.
I mean, I've always been a political creature my whole life. And that I talk about that in the book as well. I don't miss the nastiness and all the screaming and yelling and everybody calling everybody names. I don't miss that, but I do miss feeling that I'm working on something important to try and create new legislation that's going to make lives better. I loved doing that.
And the open hour is happening here after the news at 11, and we're asking the question: Team Turkey or Team Ham, or neither?
Oh, turkey.
See?
Always.
I'm in a distinct minority. I'm a ham guy.
Are you?
Yeah.
No, I'm not really. No.
So the book is out. Today is the launch.
Today is the launch.
Where can we, A, go see you with this launch, and B, get the book?
The launch is going to be at Chapters Halifax tonight from 6 till 8 p.m. in Bayers Lake. And you can get the book there or at any Kohl's. Through indigo.ca, you can pre-order it, or Amazon, you can pre-order it there. Pottersfield Press are the publishers, and Nimbus Publishing is distributing it, and I'm very grateful to them for doing my book.
Lenore, I know you're extremely busy. Thanks for flying in from LA to do our show. I know it's the book launch, but to do our show, I'll say the best of luck with the book, the best
Thank
of luck
you.
with the new series or the new season of the series, and all the work that you're doing. And that
Thank
door is
you.
always open when you want to come back.
Aw, really appreciate that, sugar.
Oh, there it is. Oh, Rogue is in my studio. I can't believe it. Anyway,
She's flying out now.
have a fantastic Thanksgiving weekend, and I
You
appreciate
too.
your time.
Thank you.
Lenore Zan, our guest. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. We're back in minutes.
Axe.
Welcome back to the Todd Veinotte Show. Dan Holstrand along with you. Oh, Lenore Zan was in here. Everybody's getting pictures done. It's really nice to see somebody that has been so successful in the political realm in our world, and then as has been so successful in Hollywood and still calling Nova Scotia home. It's fantastic. X-Men the animated series and all of the. I mean, I'm just looking at her list of credits here. Is incredible video games, and the list just goes on and on. The book is called A Rogue's Tale, and she gets into some very serious discussions about some of the issues she dealt with in her life, and we're very glad to have her into the studio. If you're not doing anything tonight, you might want to head down to Chapters at Bears Lake to check it out and have a conversation with Rogue. We've got a few minutes here before we stop for the news at the top of the hour, and if you will remember yesterday, we had a rather vigorous conversation, I will say, about bike lanes, and after our conversation with our mayoralty candidate, Wei Mason, who was in the studio yesterday, and I got an email, and I won't name the person who did it, but they know who they are if they're listening, and I appreciate it very much, that has done some digging into this. And if you remember back in our show yesterday, Wei Mason said that bike lanes, the beloved, I think was the word he used, bike lanes in our town are used by thousands and thousands of bikers, cyclists every day. And I kind of question that just based on what I've seen and my observations, and many of you questioned that statement about that on the observations that you've seen. So this email came to me yesterday, and I'll read it in its entirety, and then we'll take the break, and then we'll throw the open line number out and open up the telephone lines after the news. This email came to me yesterday. It says, just providing some actual facts and context to Mr. Mason's claim on the show yesterday that thousands of people are using bike lanes every day. The attached file provides information, and he sent me the bike counts document from the HRM staff. This file provides information given to me by HRM staff in relation to bike lane use on South Park Street. And then the email says, note that HRM has real-time counters on many of its existing bike lanes. The data shows a max, this is the data from HRM, shows a maximum of about 15,000 bikes per month on South Park Street. It occurred in July of 2024. That equates to a maximum, easy for me to say, that equates to a maximum average of roughly 485 bikes per day on South Park Street. The email goes on to say, I understand that South Park Street does not represent all of the bike lanes in Halifax, but I would hazard a guess that a lot of the bike lane users who commute to work downtown use the bike lanes on South Park Street. Fair enough. Probably the flattest area there. There's the universities there. VG is right there. There's a lot of student neighborhoods in behind there, and it's at the base of that big hill that goes up as we move towards the waterfront. So that kind of makes sense to me. So the email rate reads, so 485 max per day is a far cry from the thousands per day as claimed by Mr. Mason. Further, if you look at the data, you can see the obvious decline in bike lane use in the winter, where the counts go much, much less, to roughly 2,000 to 3,000 users a month, or less than 100 per day. Mr. Mason also referenced Stats Canada data on bike lane use. I'm not sure whether that data exists, but it would point out that bike lane count data is available on HRM's own open data website. Based on a review of this, it appears that the peak hourly bike count on South Park Street in 2024 was 81, which occurred on September 5th between 4 and 5 p.m. It makes sense, as this is the typical rush hour for work commuters. I also did a quick analysis of the bike count data available on HRM's open data website for Hollis Street and found that the peak hourly recorded bike volumes on Hollis Street in 2024 was 67, and it occurred on July 11th at 5 p.m. And again, note that the Open Data website shows some higher numbers for this than Holland Street, but these numbers occurred in January and February, which had more lower volumes and immediately preceding the following hours. So I have assumed that they were in error. The email concludes by saying, I'm not sure that any of this data supports Mr. Mason's claims that the bike lanes are beloved and that they're used by thousands of bikers every day. And I have to tell you that, and it shouldn't surprise me because I've been doing this for some time now, when I fill in for Todd and when I had my show in New Brunswick, that there are some very, very smart people out there that are far better at crunching numbers and data like this than I, and know where to find them and everything else. And whenever we have a question on things, it's always the listener that comes with the information. So that is available. All of this data available on the HRM's Open Data website if you want to go and peruse the whole thing for yourself. But at the end of the day, to sum the whole thing up, it appears that maybe Mr. Mason's claims that the bike lanes are beloved. I'm assuming that the people that use them love them. But those that don't probably don't. And the thousands that use them every day may be a bit of a stretch, at least according to the data that this listener sent to me today. Might be something you want to talk about in the Friday Free-For-All. The Friday Free-For-All is something that Rick used to do here on the program, and we try to adhere to it. And that is I keep my big mouth shut and give you an opportunity to get whatever it is on your mind off your chest and into especially this long weekend. It makes you feel much better. Sometimes it's a gigantic relief, we'll say. We're going to also ask you the question today because it is the Thanksgiving long weekend. Vanessa is the turkey fan. I'm the ham fan. Not a hab fan, a ham fan. The great Thanksgiving debate. Is it turkey? Is it ham? You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We're back after the news.
Axe.
Welcome back. It's Friday. Yeehaw. It's time for the Friday Free-For-All. The lines are open. There's a couple people on the line, but there are still a number available for you. The number is 902-405-6000. This is your opportunity to talk about whatever it is you want to talk about. And we're also asking you the question today. It's Thanksgiving weekend. Is it turkey or is it ham? Let's go to the phones and welcome Abe to the show. Abe, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm well. What's on your mind?
All right. I want to talk about, first thing, turkey.
Okay.
No ham.
Fair.
All right. The other thing would be about the election, the mayoral candidates here. I was going to say about Andy Fillmore there, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just wondering, where he's saying he wants to freeze the property taxes and so on. But personally, from my opinion, I think even freezing the property tax, that's going to even cost us more as a taxpayer. So that's just a Band-Aid. So that's going to cost us quite a bit. So that's one thing. And the other thing, what I'm saying that, he was in higher office as a federal,
Yep.
You know what I mean? He could have done way more in a higher office for us as a Nova Scotian here in Halifax than he would have done here as a city mayor. So why is he coming from a higher office, dropping down to, just to be a mayor? So what is he going to do anything different? And as you see in the past, even 8 years, or even not just 8 years, in the past even 4 years, how Halifax turned around, it didn't do any better, I'll just say. And that's from the federal. They could have helped with all the homelessness, the housing, all that stuff. So I don't really see what he's going to bring to the table here for us in Halifax. So that's what that's my opinion, personally.
Fair enough, Abe. I appreciate the call.
Thank you very much.
You have a great day. Have a great Thanksgiving weekend. 902-405-6000. That's 902-405-6000. We welcome Roy to the program. Roy, how are you?
Roy's great. Just get off my bike, but how are things?
Good. Good. What's on your mind?
Do you have a bicycle yourself?
I haven't for years.
Why not?
Because I haven't for years. I don't know. I don't have a bike.
Why not drive a bicycle? I drive a bike in Halifax, and I don't appreciate you come on the radio every week and complain about the bike lanes.
Okay. Why am I wrong?
Well, people have to get off their arses and stop driving cars around, and like Chris and Ryan degrade the. I have a bicycle. I enjoy driving my bike, and there's lots of people who drive bikes in Halifax. They're not 1,000 at a time, but still, there's people that enjoy riding the bike in the cities, and they're safe. Bike lanes are safe, and they save lives.
Do you use the bike lane every day, Roy?
Yes, I do. Somebody saw my bike last week, and it was worth $1,500. And there's people stealing bikes everywhere in the South End.
Somebody stole your bike?
Yes, they did.
My goodness. Where?
Right down here in the South End. Down by Metro Street here, where I live.
Wow, there's a lot of that going around, isn't there?
There's a lot of it going on around here, and nobody talks about people stealing bikes. But listen, the bike lanes are good, and a few bucks, just like people ride their bikes and enjoy their life. There's not 1,000 people driving bikes at one time, but accident every day. If you look out wide, there's people driving bikes. I drive a bike. I see people drive, but they don't. The people that take it saying that you don't see people driving bikes because people are driving bikes every hours and never whatever. They can't. It's not right. And anyway, Andy Fillmore is going to be the mayor of Halifax.
Okay. Why?
He's got my vote, and you tell Chris and Ryan they better get a bike for Christmas, okay?
Okay, Roy, I appreciate it.
That's right. Thanks, buddy.
Have a good day. 902-405-6000. That's 902-405-6000. And I will fully admit it, I haven't ridden a bicycle in Halifax since I've been here. And maybe I should. And maybe that would change my opinion on bike lanes. But I can recall others who do ride bicycles that are still not in favor of the lanes. But hey, maybe I should. Maybe I should go and get a bike and take a drive around. And from what I'm hearing from people that are driving around, from what I'm seeing, I'll have lots of space in the bike lanes these days, right? 902-405-6000. Let's welcome David to the program. Dave, how are you?
Hi, Dan. Sorry, I don't mean to cast a pall on the upcoming Thanksgiving celebrations because it's a holiday I look forward to every year.
Sure.
But I just wanted to point out that in this province, it isn't a stat holiday. So that while for some, it's a holiday, they get the time off or extra pay if they do have to work, for many others, and especially those who are low-wage earners, it's just any other day of the work week. So, Halloween is one of two, I think, uniquely North American cultural holidays, the other, I assume, being Halloween, and that's it. So I think it's just something we should do more to honor, and that just finding means to allow either all to participate or at least benefit in terms of higher pay if they do have to work on that day and, spend the time away from their families.
Turkey or ham?
Why do we have to choose? or how's this? Turkey, wrapped in bacon.
Oh, there you go. You get a little bit of everything in there. David, have a great weekend, okay?
Take it off as you go. Thanks, bud. I will.
Cheers.
Definitely. You too. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. 902-405-6000. David's running for council, and why do we have to choose? Because sometimes we have to make tough decisions, right, David? Anyway, we're going to continue to ask that question as we move along today. Vanessa seems to be well in the lead with her turkey idea. I'm a ham guy. The great Thanksgiving debate continues. Let's welcome Ed to the program. Ed, how are you?
Good morning, Dan. I'm fine. Dan, Andy Fillmore is arguably even part of one of the most divisive, corrupt, spendthrift governments in Canadian history, and their overly ambitious immigration problems have caused, program, has caused a myriad of problems in this country. Mm-hmm. So I guess my question is, why should anybody vote for him for mayor of Halifax?
So his time as an MP is why you won't vote for Andy Fillmore.
Well, that's his record, isn't it? Yeah, and that's exactly why I wouldn't vote for him.
Ed?
I'll go for Turkey, and I hope you have a nice day, sir.
You have a good one, too. And Ed, I'll ask this question again, and maybe when you call back on Tuesday, you can answer it. But when you're a federal MP, and I'm not defending Andy Fillmore's record by any means, right? But and when you're a federal MP, you're told what to do. or you don't get to play. Now, he did say that that the government was on the right track with immigration, and now that they're pumping the brakes, he supports that. I asked him that very question. But as a mayor, does what his record in Ottawa, and I get it, and I know he's a public official, and I understand that, that's the record that we have to look at. But should that be the only thing you look at when you look at a candidate for office? Maybe you should. What do you think, Tony?
What do I think?
Yeah.
I don't think much. Listen, gas, bad news, and more bad news.
Okay.
Gas went up almost 7 cents a liter in the HRM this morning. That's pretty devastating news for Thanksgiving, but it's Thanksgiving, so we got to be thankful for what we got.
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday, Dr. Strang announced that the vaccination program for COVID and for the RSV as well as the flu vaccines is now open. Well, yeah, it's open, but he also had a caveat there that you cannot request what vaccine you want.
Yeah, you
get what you get.
You get what you get. You can't pick between the mRNAs anymore.
Yeah, well, I'm going to ask a question here.
Sure.
I have a physical ailment that precludes me taking some types of medications, and one of them happens to turn out to be Moderna, has had an effect on people with heart conditions. Well, I have both two heart conditions that fall into that category. Now, why can't I, based on my physician's recommendation, if Pfizer is available, why can't I ask for Pfizer? How are you tending to your patients when you're telling them this is what you get or you don't get anything? I don't understand that. Plus, it's not available in your neighborhoods and will not be. I happened to be in the drugstore yesterday. Actually, I happened to be in Superstore and overhear a conversation at the drug counter that they're not going to be able to provide these vaccinations until the end of the month, which is going to clog up the whole system anyway. I tried last night to get through. I tried this morning to get through. It's virtually impossible. And the information is somewhat obscure. So I think the rollout, Dr. Strang was sort of dictatorial in his rollout. This is the way it's going to be. Just be happy you got what you got, in essence. I don't like that too much. As far as Andy Fillmore is concerned, one thing you had a caller on called it exactly right, and you called it exactly right. When he was in Parliament, he had no choice but to vote as a Liberal because he would have been put on the back bench if he didn't.
Or kicked out of the caucus.
As the mayor, and you pointed this out, he has one vote. And he also acclimated it or said that he only had one vote. So he's got 16 people. He's really the tiebreaker. If you can tell me, after all the time that Mike Savage has been mayor, other than a pain in the ass environmental issue that he brought home from one conference he went to that cost us 3% on our taxes, what he did as a mayor, personally what he did as a mayor, can you give me any item that he personally was able to get through and what he actually had a heavy hand in? You can't. You can't because he didn't. Because you can't. He's one of 17.
Tony, just to piggyback on what you said there, you're right. I did ask him the question about the weak mayor versus the strong mayor, and
I did hear that.
His answer was interesting to me, and maybe I'm just reading into this, but he didn't just immediately dismiss the strong mayor plan, and he said, I'm interested to see what the results are, and some of the results he's seeing out of Ontario are good results. I think that was what he said. So, is he going to push to bring, strong mayor powers to Halifax? That's a legit question.
How is he going to get it through? He's got 16 minions to go through. Plus
that comes from the province, though, doesn't it? Does it not? Like if they bring the strong mayor powers in, I think that comes from the province.
Well, now I have to admit I'm not familiar with that.
Okay,
I didn't know that.
That's right.
I would have to check that. I don't believe. Well, hell, they don't talk to each other. I don't know how the hell they're going to do anything anyway. I mean, I don't mean to be a shithead about it, but excuse my language this morning. I'm full of nice language this morning. But at any rate, happy Thanksgiving to you and yours and to all the people of Halifax.
Turkey or ham?
I am batching it. My wife is up with her family in Cape Breton, so I will probably be having a grilled ham and cheese.
Fair enough, Tony. Have a great weekend.
You too, buddy.
902-405-6000. So Tony's on Team Ham then, right? If he's having a grilled ham and cheese sandwich, right? Am I wrong? Need to stop and take a break. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. We're back in minutes. Welcome back. Dan Ulstrand along with you here, having a little bit of fun on a Friday before a long weekend. The Friday free-for-all continues, 902-405-6000. That's 902-405-6000. Just a couple of quick emails I want to pass along. Got an email from Bob Burgess. For those of you who don't know who he is a copy editor that retired from the Herald, and normally when I get an email from Bob, it's because I said something wrong, and I did. He said, hey, just an FYI, mayoral is an adjective. Mayoralty is the noun. You can be a mayoral candidate or a candidate for the mayoralty, but you can't be a mayoralty candidate. So thanks for that, Bob. I appreciate it. That's why we have editors. So there you go. 902-405-6000. Let's welcome Dave to the show. Dave, how are you?
Good morning, Dan, and to all your listeners, happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
I would probably lean on ham this year because I was looking at the price of turkey, and it's super expensive.
Is it really? Because I had Sylvain Charlebois on the show yesterday who was trumpeting he bought a frozen turkey for $1.60 a pound.
I'd like to know where he got that.
Oh, me too, because that sounds like it's pretty cheap.
Say pork is very cheap right now.
It is.
But having said that, that's just the way I look at it. And but yeah, turkey. I'd lean to turkey if I had to. Anyways, Andy Fillmore has my vote. I had the pleasure of meeting him. Just stumbled on him down around the Hydrostone area there. He's very personable. Mm-hmm. I was hoping he wouldn't think I was a weirdo. I was waiting for my car to get fixed. I came up to him, and he was very pleasant. He said, it was my pleasure to meet you. And I said, well, it's my pleasure to meet you. And I've been undecided. And I try to leave the liberal thing out of it because I want the best person. I like their policies versus the party first. In my opinion, I voted NDP, Liberal, and certainly not going to vote for Liberal federally this time. I try to keep an open mind on things. And I like his idea about the homeless. I directed a question. That's one of the big ones on bike lanes. But homeless is very serious stuff here in this city. And he agreed. He told me there's a lot of people from outside the city that are coming to Halifax. And I think he discussed that earlier on your interview with him.
Yep.
And it is true. So we have some, and that's, people have the right to flow wherever they want in this country. But I do agree that we have to get them out of tents. I think it is inhumane. It's going to cost us all a lot of money, and you know yourself up at, I think there's a pallet encampment being built up around Canada, up where you are.
Yep.
That's going in, and that's going to cost several $1 million, I think, by the end of it. So, but we have to do it. There's some things we have to do. Bike lanes, they're coming. I mean, the fact is,
they're here.
Can see a bike lane.
Right? They're already here.
I can see it. I can see my tax money at work there at least, to see what's coming. I won't be on them myself at my age, and the weather is not very good here for them, but it's coming. You can see other cities, modern cities, we're a growing city, that are installing bike lanes. And also you have e-bikes, you have e-scooters. You see them flying around all over the place on the waterfront. They're actually dangerous. They have to come down. But maybe licensing some of these bikes and e-bikes and getting some revenue from that if they want the bike lanes. You know what I'm saying? I know it would be difficult. People say, well, reason we have bikes because it's cheap, right? But just a nominal fee of
we used to, right? Back in the old days, we used to have a license on our bike.
Yeah,
I had one.
A little plate where, because these folks are dangerous, and maybe you can get a picture or something. Well, this guy was. But anyways, I think that could help buff, the bike lanes and what have you. But Andy has my vote, that's for sure. Not just because I met him personally, but I like his policies. He's polished, and he brings something to the table, maybe from Ottawa. He's probably got some connections there as well. Yeah, and he's an urban planner. He's been educated as such. We need somebody in this city that's growing. I mean, we are becoming a major league city. Well, can't say major league city as yet, but we're a flourishing city, and that's my opinion on Andy. And, so that's why he's got my vote.
Dave, have a great weekend.
Thanks, Dan. Cheers. You too.
902-405-6000. That's 902-405-6000. Let's get one more call in here before we take the break. Gloria, how are you?
I'm well, and I'm a turkey person.
I kind of figured as much.
and let me tell you, this week at Sobeys, you could get turkey for $1.67 a pound.
There you go. So Sylvan was right.
Yeah, I'm sitting here listening to these candidates, and I'm shaking my head.
Okay.
When I ran in an election, the thing I promised was that I would be fiscally responsible. Andy Fillmore cannot freeze the tax rate. How many times does he have to be told that? The people are so disillusioned today, Dan. No wonder they're not voting. We have a situation where people were brought in from South End Halifax to a fake public hearing. Council had decided before the hearing that they were voting for the accelerator plan, and yet they brought them in there and listened to them. They lied to us about Victoria Park being contaminated. Somebody foy-popped it was not contaminated. They fenced it to keep the tents out. I guess they all came to Dartmouth after that. All the time I was on council, I voted for one budget. The rest, I always felt something could happen. It was because of me that we have an auditor general in HRM. They do not listen to the auditor general's recommendation. We wouldn't have had a library strike had they listened. The people being paid 15-something and doubling almost the staff that were being paid over 100,000. No wonder people are disillusioned. Way Mason, seeing thousands and thousands of bicycles. He must be dreaming. I don't see thousands in Dartmouth. I see very few. And bike lanes are great when we can afford them. First, let's get our transit fixed. Let's get our ferry running. Yesterday, 3:30, all the people who left their cars in Woodside had to get off at Alderney because that ferry was taken off.
Yeah.
You know, how much can people take? No wonder they're disillusioned. I just pray that they will get out and vote. And Andy, as somebody said, has connections in Ottawa. How many connections will he have after the election?
Gloria, one very important question. Is there banana bread for this weekend?
No, there's raisin bread.
Oh, even better. I appreciate your call. Have a happy Thanksgiving.
Thanks.
That is Gloria McCluskey. God bless her, right? Let's stop down and take a break for the news. When we come back, the Friday free-for-all continues. Remember, is it turkey or is it ham? You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. We're back in minutes. Welcome back. Friday free-for-all continues here on the Friday edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. We've got a ton of callers, so let's try and get as many in as we can, all right? Ann, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm terrific. Turkey or ham?
Well, turkey for Thanksgiving, ham for Christmas.
See, I'm the exact opposite. Maybe I'm just weird.
Well, sometimes you got to mix it up.
Fair enough. What's on your mind?
Calling about the mayoral candidates. Hope I'm saying that right. Anyway, you can go to the Halifax website, the city website, or you can just type in Mayor's Halifax.
Okay.
2024, and it'll come up on the Halifax website, all 16 of them. You can go in. Some of them have links. Some of them you look them up on Facebook. And you can, all of them are available via Facebook except for one.
Okay.
Anyhow, you can look over their platforms if they have some and if they don't. And it's all on there. And it's a great way because to find out about who's running and the debates. Now, I follow things pretty close, and even I missed out on the debates. I feel you're just being shown the same people And some people have funding, some people don't, of course, same as any election. But anyway, you can look over all 16, and if you really don't like bike lanes, I would suggest you check out Greg Frampton.
Fair enough. And have a great Thanksgiving long weekend, and I appreciate the call.
Not a problem. You have a good one.
902-405-6000. That's 902-405-6000. I knew that Bill was going to call me because I didn't get a chance to ask the post office question today. Hi, Bill.
How you doing?
I ran out of time.
I can't seem to get that question answered.
Well, it was on my list, Bill, but I just 15 minutes goes pretty quick.
Well, I'll make it quick on that one. I'm just looking to figure what he's got in mind, because if he's going to disturb that post office, it's going to certainly mess up my mail and many, many thousands. Anyway, I'll leave that one with you.
Sure.
You're going to ask me which turkey or what do you
turkey
call
or
it,
ham?
right? Are you ready for this one?
I am ready.
Goose.
Goose?
Number one. Goose.
Really?
Number one. Number two, rabbit. Number three, cow's tongue.
Now, I've had cow's tongue. I never had it for Thanksgiving. I've had cow's tongue, but I've eaten goose before, but never for Thanksgiving. Bill, that's interesting.
Well, yeah, goose, but it's so expensive. It's almost extreme.
Right.
The rabbit thing, you remember the old days? They used to hang the rabbits with the fur on would hang outside the stores there.
Well, I'm afraid that's before my time, but okay, yeah.
The other thing, so that's different for you. So the other thing is about the bike lanes.
Yeah.
Count how many cars are going by in these areas. I mean, I can't believe these bike lanes are getting this kind of money and stuff when we got much, much more important ways to spend our money than fooling around. It was never a problem before. I mean, it's like suddenly they're high priority. I don't know why, but anyway, thanks very much for your time.
Have a happy Thanksgiving, Bill.
Get a goose.
And get a goose. All right, got my goose. Thanks, Bill. 902-405-6000. I imagine you can still get them. I don't think I've ever seen one. Maybe you have to go to a butcher shop or something along those lines. But anyway, there's the Christmas goose, right? Anyway, let's, where are we here? George, how are you?
Hi, Dan. How are you?
I'm good. What's on your mind?
First, I want to say good luck to Todd there. Thank you about him
for sure.
Host. So I was listening earlier in the week, and I heard the news report that we're sending some aid to Lebanon for whoever may be displaced. So the reason I'm calling is I wonder if everyone else sees it sort of like I'm confused by the whole situation we're in with this. It seems like we send aid or money to Israel and weapons to Israel, and then we send money to Lebanon for the people that are displaced from the rockets that are fired from Israel. And I'm just sort of wondering if everyone else is seeing, the conflict here.
Right. And that's a fair comparison. I don't know how many weapons Canada sends to Israel. I'm not saying that you're wrong, but I don't know how many we send. But we certainly do send money, and now we're sending, I think it's $56 million to Lebanon for to help with the humanitarian crisis that's caused by this conflict. That's why I've said that it's time that everybody just puts their toys down. And let's stop bombing stuff, and that's the way we're going to come to a solution. Because by blowing stuff up on either side is never going to solve this.
Yeah, I agree. It's like burning your own house down just to rebuild it.
Right?
I don't understand how you'd be throwing out money.
That's a good analogy, George. That one works for me.
Great, thanks for letting me on.
Turkey or ham?
I'm a turkey. My dad eats ham way too much for me to eat any more ham.
Okay, fair. Have a good weekend. 902-405-6000. And then that's that. And I know it's maybe the pie in the sky thinking the solution to some of these world conflicts, like we're seeing in the Middle East or we're seeing in Ukraine and Russia, blowing stuff up. We're never going to get a solution, no matter if you're firing rockets into Israel, if you're firing rockets from Israel. It is never going to solve this situation until we put all of our toys down, take a breath, and sit down and talk about it, because blowing stuff up isn't going to fix the solution. Kurt, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm well. What's on your mind?
Great. Well, I'll answer your question, ham first.
See there now. We're catching up.
And I want to thank you very much. Your show, what it does. You mentioned the meeting that took place last night at St. Mary's with the mayoral candidates, and I went. I would not have found out about it if you hadn't do that.
How was it?
So it's the value. It was good. Didn't change my mind on anything, but it was good to hear from everybody.
Good.
What I particularly liked was Nolan Greeno was there, who is a candidate, the 23-year-old fella.
Okay.
I don't know if he's been in, but
I don't think so.
He should get in touch. He won't make it for mayor, but I encourage young people to get involved, and I think he's got a good future. So it was great to talk to him. But I do want to go, and I'm racing because I know you got lots on the line, and talk about bike lanes. You've heard me talk before. I'm very pro. I'm a senior citizen.
For sure.
And I think we need to encourage more pro cyclists to get involved. And I just want to run through my reasons for it. We need to connect up the bike lanes that we have so it can be safe. It is awful getting off the bike lanes and having to go through major transactions. But the main reasons that I think they're so good for us, it's sustainable. It doesn't create any carbon or any of that kind of thing. It has a huge impact on reducing traffic. And it's great exercise and a way to meet people. I'm fortunate enough I can go down through Point Pleasant Park and up through the Container Port and on the boardwalk, and I can stop and talk to people. We've had so many great conversations. So for me, it's a great exercise. But more importantly, it's the young people. It's incredible ways of getting your kids to school. I drive a bike that I can take safely, a kid on back. There are extended ones that you can take 2 kids on the back and all the gear. And I'd like to get some of those people to call in and say how good it is for them. So it really is important to start hearing about people that support it. I think looking backward, I bet that email that you got came from a fellow whose name starts with a C, who I very much respect, by the way. But we can't look backwards. We need to look forwards. Go and look at some of the cities where bikes are happening that are hilly. Go to Denmark. Look at Ottawa. Look at Montreal. They have incredible infrastructure. And every time I've been in Ottawa, which my family has moved there as a daughter, it is so great to just be able to buy cars sitting there idling, waiting in a traffic jam. So rather than looking at data where bike lanes don't connect, where there isn't good bike infrastructure, let's look forward at what it could be. Let's look at some of those other cities, and I want to encourage people coming in.
Okay, Kurt.
I don't want to take too much time.
Appreciate it. Have a great Thanksgiving weekend. Bye-bye. 902-405-6000. That's 902-405-6000. Lewis is on the line. Been on for a while. I appreciate you holding, Lewis. What's on your mind?
Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm well.
Good. I've been listening to this bike thing, and I couldn't help myself, but I had to call.
Good.
I'm over 70. Mm-hmm. I grew up in Halifax. I drove a bike in Halifax probably from the age of 5 until the age of 15.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't need a dedicated bike lane to know where to drive and how to drive.
Okay.
I can understand people wanting to drive their bicycle, but we don't need to spend millions and millions and millions of dollars on these bike lanes. That's just a waste of money.
Lewis, Lewis, and I don't disagree with you, but how many cars were on the road when you were 5 years old as compared to today?
I think it's relative.
Is it really?
Many cars on the road. Sure, there was this many cars in the road in 1961, and there was this many bicycles.
Okay,
it's a relative factor if
sure.
if you weigh it out. But these bikes, they don't pay anything to be on the roads. They should have to pay a license. You and I both paid the license. You were saying that.
Yep.
You had to pay it every January. I think it was $5 or $2. I remember my father going down to the police station to buy it.
Yep.
Me too. And they should pay it too. And I don't think it should be $2. I think it should be a minimum of at least $25. They should pay to have the right to drive on the roads. The other thing is, have you ever been hit by a bicycle that's driving 10 kilometers an hour?
No, sir.
It hurts, and it hurts for a long time. And they don't have to have liability insurance. They should have to. No question. They should have to have liability insurance because they're more reckless out there on those bicycles than a lot of people are in the cars.
I always am leery about saying they because I would imagine that not everybody is reckless on their bicycle, Lewis.
No. That's absolutely true.
Right? Because there are a lot of car drivers out there that are reckless.
Absolutely. But they should have to have liability insurance. I don't see why it hasn't been made a legal requirement if you want to drive in the HRM. Maybe the new mayor should look at that.
Lois, turkey or ham?
Chicken, actually.
Oh, okay. Well, close enough to turkey. We'll count that one for turkey.
My wife finds turkey too gamey or foul. She says, "I don't know."
Well, it is foul.
Yeah.
Have a great long weekend, sir.
You too, my friend.
902-405-6000. We need to take a break, Vanessa. We do need to take a break, right? Let's stop down for one more commercial and come back. You're listening to the Friday Free for All on the Todd Veinotte Show. We're back in minutes.
Thanks.
Welcome back to the Todd Veinotte Show. The Friday Free for All continues. Lines are jammed, so let's try and get as many people on as we can. Let's start with David. David, how are you?
Oh, wonderful. How you doing, Dan?
I am good. Turkey or ham?
My girlfriend is allergic to turkey, so I'm going to go with ham for her and turkey for myself.
Oh, so you're going to do both?
Yeah.
Oh, goodness gracious. You're going to have lots of leftovers.
Yeah, we will share kitchen duties as well.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So the other issue I'm going to call about is about those bike lanes. I have a solution, and it's on my platform as well. As you know, I'm a mayoral candidate. And what it is to have a toll bikeway that also has fences on the side, state of the art, where people could advertise. That would pay for the cost. Would be having tolls and then advertising like billboards along the way, and have an actual expressway for bicycles to come in from this peninsula. It would solve a lot of the problems we have, and it would solve the funding as well.
So you would sell advertising and naming rights.
Yeah, exactly, naming rights, advertising billboards along the way, electronic billboards, and have a toll that the clubs could pay for if they wanted to sponsor a certain percentage of the bike lane.
David,
the other
sure, go ahead.
Sure, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead. And the other issue I had here, I just got a couple of emails, and people are actually this is part of the mayor's jurisdiction, but it is something that people want from what I hear. I did a survey on my site, and what they want is more casinos here to bring fundraising into the province, and that's under a provincial jurisdiction. But I know as a mayor, I could advocate for people that on both sides that want to have more casinos and more entertainment to Halifax. So that's just my 2 points there.
David, you said it's on your website. Where's your website address?
It's actually through my on my Facebook. It's David Boyd for Mayor 2024, HRM Mayor 2024, and it's on Facebook.
Have a good long weekend, sir.
Great, thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
902-405-6000. There's a debate for Tuesday. Do we need more casinos in Halifax? I'm not hearing a big call for it, but I won't say David's wrong. Let's welcome another Dave to the program. Dave, how are you? You're a popular name today.
Well, you know, in the year I was born, the most popular name for boys was David, and for girls it was Susan.
Okay. I haven't got any Susans on the line, but I got a few Daves. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Turkey or ham?
Turkey for me, but I just wanted to make a quick comment on the goose. Have you ever seen the movie A Christmas Carol with Alistair Sims?
Gonna shoot your eye out. That's a Christmas story. Alistair Sims, that's the old school Dickens one, right?
That's the one. Have you seen it?
Yeah, a long time ago.
Okay, I suggest you rewatch that because that is the go-to Christmas movie. And in the movie, the family dealing with Scrooge, they're on the low end of the economic scale. They can't afford turkey, so their go-to meal is the goose.
Right.
So it has a precedence, at least in fiction, and goose is actually very good. So I would pick goose as a second to turkey.
Dave, can you get them? Like, I mean, I've had goose before, but we got our own, if you know what I'm saying. But can you buy goose at a store now?
You can. You have to do a little bit of investigating to find out where they are, and generally you'll find there's a choice between frozen and fresh. Okay. Obviously, you want to go fresh, but yep, they're out there, bud.
So like at butcher shops and such?
Yep.
Okay, fair. Dave, have a great long weekend, sir.
Okay, you too, Dan.
Have a good one. 902-405-6000. Where are we here? Oh, Nelson. Nelson, how are you?
Good day, Dan. Good day.
Turkey or ham?
I have something. Turkey or ham. I'm just grateful to have a meal today.
Fair. And that's a fair point. What's on your mind?
The electoral.
Mm-hmm.
I hear so many people call your show and say that the elected politicians do not listen to anything that we tell them.
Okay.
They do what they want. We only get a chance once every 4 years to have our say. This is it. For all of those people out there who are thinking about not voting because they have no say, they have nothing, this is your opportunity. If you want to make a change, it's going to be now. For mayor, vote for the homeless man or for Jim Hopkins. The mayor is basically a ceremonial post. He has one vote. That's it. They're not going to ruin your city. But if you come out and you elect either the homeless man or Jim Hopkins, then you have either an honest man or a real person that they have to look at every day when they go in there. That will make a difference in the next 4 years. Sitting home and not voting is going to make no difference. No difference whatsoever. Get out there, cast your vote, let the politicians know that you're taking back the power. That's all I have for you, Dan.
Nelson, have a great long weekend.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
902-405-6000. Albert, welcome to the show.
Yeah, good morning. Yeah, first word about bicycle lanes. So I do like bicycling. It's nice to see the population out getting fit and good, clean, healthy transportation.
Okay.
But I just disagree with the heavy-handed, clumsy approach that the city has taken to making them. First of all, they're planning on cutting down 250 trees of the urban forest. I haven't got time to go into the advantages of each tree, but it would take an awful lot of cars to take off the streets to compensate for the disadvantage of cutting down.
So leave the trees and put the bike lanes around the trees is what you're saying.
Exactly. I've seen it in other cities. It's fun to noodle around trees.
Sure.
You're not going 60 miles an hour.
Okay.
So trees, the urban forest has to be protected above all else. Otherwise, I agree with bicycle lanes for safety. This traffic is, people are driving faster, more aggressively. There's more blind spots from the view plane of the car, and it's harder to see bicycles. And so it's important for safety. And there's also the proliferation of microtransport. You've seen these scooters and even unicycles. They don't belong in the street. It's pretty bad when they're on the street with you. I agree with the separation of alternate transport from cars, but it's going to be done in a sensible, a discreet way, and it can be done.
Albert, I'm up against the break here. Turkey or ham?
Oh, I could eat turkey 364 days a year.
There you go. All right, sir. Have a great long weekend. I'm going to try and get one more call in here, and the last word today goes to Ken. Ken, how are you?
Good. How are you, Dan?
Good. Turkey or ham?
I'm going to go with ham because we got enough turkeys in office now. Case in point, Wayne Nason. Next time he's on, can you ask him what dispensary he goes to? Because he's getting a lot better stuff than I got.
Oh, boy. There you go.
And, when it first came on, how this all came about was when Rick was alive.
Okay.
Right? And some guy called the radio station. I don't know if you remember back that far. And he said, how come there ain't no bike lanes in Halifax? And he was going on, blah, blah, blah. I can't remember where he was from. I think the UK. And then everybody jumped on board. Anyway, they preach safety. No, we don't want insurance. No, we don't want to register the bikes. And that would discourage people from going out on bikes. Well, after they got the bike lanes on the go, then they come up with this Denver stop, they called it here, right? Which basically is you come up to a stop sign, you don't have to stop, you can roll right through it. 2 weeks ago on the CTV News, you can check back on it, they did an article out in Vancouver, and this guy, and this is for Mike who called everybody idiots who drove cars, right? He's doing the same thing out in Vancouver, right? He's taken away the safety aspect of it because I forget, he had a different name for it, but it was a rolling stop at a red light.
Okay.
And a no stop at a stop sign. And then a mother, they interviewed him and then they interviewed a mother and she goes, yes, she said, I want changes to it because I have 2 kids with me and if we come to a full stop at a stop sign, it's hard to get them going again. Where is the thought process in that?
Fair enough.
And Hollis Street?
Yeah.
I heard the numbers in that earlier. I used to be down back and forth to the container pier.
Okay.
Right when I was trucking down there, there's not enough room. There's a guy down there. He's got a business doing shredding paper for businesses and that. He can't even. He's got a little bucket like the green bins, right? That he tips up in the truck. There's not even enough room for him to tip his bucket He's got to wait for the traffic to stop. That's how close everything is down on Hollis Street now and Lower Water Street. It's ridiculous, right? Bill them and they will come. Yeah, sure.
Ken, I appreciate the call. Just at a time, everybody. Thank you for taking time out of your day. For those of you that we didn't get to, I apologize. We need to stop down and take another break. The Todd Veinotte Show continues on the other side of the news. We're back in minutes. Welcome back to the Todd Veinotte Show. Dan Alstrand along with you. Happy Friday afternoon. Hope you're having a fantastic day. Just watching some of the updates and the news conferences that are going on right now down in Florida as that state recovers from Hurricane Milton. We, of course, we being Nova Scotia, are seeing some of our Nova Scotia Power crews being sent down there to help with the restoration effort. As I understand, it's still about 2.5 million people in the state of Florida are without electricity after dealing with that storm that came ashore as a Category 3 on Thursday morning, Wednesday night, Thursday morning, and came across most of the state as a Category 1. Some of the anecdotal information that I'm seeing is that, it wasn't as bad as it could have been, but still 2.5 million people without electricity is quite a task to get that restored because, having no power after a hurricane sucks. We all know about that here. Nova Scotia Power, as I mentioned, sending some crews down there. Apparently, the utility is sending crews after getting a call Sunday night, and we're very pleased to welcome to the program. I know he's extremely busy. Nova Scotia Power's Senior Director of Energy Delivery, Matt Drover. Matt, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so as I understand it, first of all, how many crews from Nova Scotia Power have we sent to Florida?
We sent a team of 35 people down, so 25 power line technicians, and then a number of support staff like mechanics, logistics, safety personnel. So 35 in total, and they've been there for a few days now.
So they drive all their trucks and everything down in a big convoy. Is that how that works?
That's exactly how it works. So as you mentioned, we got the call on Sunday night, and within 24 hours, we were able to turn that around and get the team stood up. Lots of volunteers. Everybody wanted to go down and help out as much as they could. As you mentioned, we've definitely seen our share of hurricanes here. And when we have big hurricanes hit our province, we reach out to as many neighbors as we possibly can to get help here. And it was great to be able to go down there and return the favor. So our crews jumped in their trucks as quickly as they could and hit the road. They drove right through. They took some breaks along the way, but they were very excited to get there and help out.
Matt, you said you got the call on Sunday night. Where does that call come from? Does it come from the state? Does it come from the utilities down there? Or did it come from Emera? Where does that call come from?
It actually comes directly from the power utilities down there. So like we do here, we reach out to as many contractor companies and neighboring utilities. For example, during Fiona, we had crews in from Ontario, Quebec, all the Atlantic provinces, Maine. We had some from Florida as well. So they reach out to us directly. They ask us to send as many people as we can. We look at the impacts obviously that's going to have here and try to free up as much people as we possibly can. And in this case, it's about 35 people.
So is that those 35 people, are they all volunteers? Do you ask for a show of hands kind of thing?
That's exactly how it works, yep. And lots of people, more than 35, definitely put up their hands. Many people volunteered. They were very proud to be able to go down there and help, and we were proud of them. So we put that team together, like I said, within 24 hours, and then they hit the road, ready to go.
Do we know where they're working right now? Are they working in Florida near Tampa, or do we have that information?
It is exactly that. So Tampa, they're actually just crossing the border right now. So they were stationed outside of Florida while the hurricane passed through, and it took Tampa just over a day to do some of their damage assessment and know where the hardest hit areas were. As you mentioned, it did hit a bit more south than what they were originally expecting, but it still was a Category 3, and it was a very widespread hurricane, so those hurricane force winds were pretty much all throughout Tampa. So once we got the go-ahead that it was safe to do so, our crew started driving this morning. They just crossed the border into Florida, and from what I've been told, they're moving into Tampa and being assigned work right away.
What kind of work is it? Is it the same kind of work that we would see typically here after a hurricane, fixing down lines and poles?
It looks exactly like what it would have been like here during Fiona and Dorian. So many poles on the ground, many trees lying on wires, downed electrical wires, lots and lots of infrastructure that would have been impacted by those extreme winds. So the type of work that they do is very similar to what we would do here. So they're going out, they're finding where the trees are, they're going up in their buckets, removing the trees, making any repairs to poles or wires or any supporting equipment, and then getting the power back on from there.
Do we know any kind of time frame, how long they expect to be down there?
We don't know yet, so it's too early to say. They haven't really given us any indication yet how long it's going to take. I know they have many people on the ground right now doing those repairs and trying to get customers back on as quickly and safely as they can. It is a catastrophic storm. It's pretty impactful. I believe there was 590,000 customers in Tampa that were impacted, so 2.5 million in the state of Florida in total, but almost 600,000 in Tampa. And so it's going to take some time for sure.
And by catastrophic, I've seen some of the photographs in the Tampa area, and entire lines. The poles are not necessarily fallen; like they're in pieces. So that must take a long time to fix an entire line that's been ripped out.
As you can imagine, they'd have to rebuild from scratch in those cases. So it's not making temporary repairs to get the power back on. It's rebuilding all of those poles and lines from scratch in some cases. So that does take time. They will get multiple crews on a lot of those locations and try to do that as quickly as they can. But with damage like that, very similar to Fiona. We had situations like that in Glace Bay during Fiona where we had poles completely on the ground and we had to rebuild from scratch. It's a lot like that.
Matt, obviously there's some costs associated with this, with salaries and overtime and incidentals and those kind of things. Who covers does the state of Florida cover the bill, or how does that work?
So it wouldn't be the state, it would be the utility themselves. So no impact to our customers at all. All those costs are borne by the power utility that's requesting the service. So no impact to Nova Scotia at all.
Matt, I appreciate your time. I know you're busy, and best of luck to you and to your crews down there.
Thanks a lot, Dan. Much appreciated.
That is Matt Drover from Nova Scotia Power. 35 crews are in Florida as we speak. In fact, we just heard that they crossed the border this morning. Now that it's been declared, and I'm putting quotations around this, is safe. If you've seen any of the pictures, I mean, the main picture everybody's kind of looking at is the roof of Tropicana Field has just been absolutely shredded. But I've seen some photographs in neighborhoods. I have some people that I follow on social media have friends that are down there, and literally the poles weren't just toppled, or you know how we've seen it here where they just kind of get ripped out of the ground and fall. Like they were shattered. They were snapped like matchsticks. That's how strong that wind was. So I would imagine that the restoration effort for power in Florida is going to take some time. Some good news I read this morning that Orlando, which is in the center of Florida, was relatively spared from the storm. It still was stood a Category 1, which is crazy to begin with, but a lot of the damage there was minimal. And as I understand it, those of you that were perhaps looking to go to Florida to go to the theme parks, they're reopening, I think, today or tomorrow. So the damage in the center of that state not as bad, obviously, as where it came ashore. And had a conversation briefly this morning with an old Army buddy that is living just south of Daytona, where he said that it got a little windy, toppled some trees and a couple of street signs, but nothing there. So it looks like that the west coast in the Tampa Bay area and just south towards Sarasota was where the majority of that damage was, and that's where our Nova Scotia Power crews are being assigned to at this point. We need to stop and take another break, but the show will continue on the other side. A conversation with somebody else that's high up on my list of just really fun people to talk to, and that's Misha Brugger-Grossman-Lee. Yeah, you know who she is, and she's playing at the Carlton. What a fantastic venue. We're looking forward to our conversation with Misha when we return. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm back in minutes. You know, I talk about it a lot. This song always is just kind of hits me right in the center. But I talk about it a lot, and sometimes I know everybody just say, whatever. He's just doing that because he's a champion for the Maritimes. But we are absolutely blessed in this part of the world to be surrounded by some extremely talented people, right? Vanessa Van Den Esch is number one on my list, of course. But, earlier today we had a conversation with Lenore Zan, and I welcome to the program somebody else who is internationally renowned, an international operatic superstar, let's say. And she's just such a nice person. I always like talking to her. Misha Bruger-Grossman. Lee, how are you?
Hi, Dan. Thank you so much.
Wow.
I like talking to you too.
Well, there you go. It seems like every time I'm filling in for Todd, we chat. Maybe it's in the cards, right?
Listen, I wait for him to leave, and then I try to get...
Oh, okay. Works for me. Misha, how are you?
I'm so good. It's so funny. You can picture this perfectly because I'm parked at Point Pleasant Park looking out at the harbor, and it's gorgeous. I love this city so much.
And we want to say that she's sitting out in her car, and she's listening to Todd Veinotte show, and she's looking out over that beautiful water at Black Rock Beach, looking at the container terminal off to her left, with the seagulls floating around in the sky, and she's writing her next super hit.
It's like looking in a mirror. Dan, thanks so much.
Misha, I mentioned it was in part of the preamble that we are blessed here in Atlantic Canada because we have so many talented people that live here. Why do you think that is?
I think it's the air. I think it's the friendliness, the hospitality. I think COVID taught us all how little money we actually need to live. Because as artists, we had no money, so it was a real blessing to be in a place where you could grow your own food. I think it's a myriad of things, but when I look at my sons and how it is such a privilege to be able to send them outside, have them chop wood, get them connected to creation, this is why we're here. This is this connection that we're all meant to have spills into our relationships. And I love making my debut at the Carlton because I've never actually given a concert there before.
Can you believe that you've this time you lived here and this is your first appearance on the Carlton stage?
And it is super timely. The timing is perfect because of this era we're in where I really am wanting to make classical music as friendly, as welcoming, as new. Do you know what I mean? Like the intersectionality of our common humanity can come and gather around the hearth of this song cycle because it is very much a mix of what I love about being a Canadian artist.
This is a little bit of this new album that we're going to talk about in a sec is a little bit different, right? This is can I say it's new ground that you're kind of walking on with Zombie Blizzard?
It's Zombie Blizzard, but you started with the first album from Laureate, and the guitarist you heard is the man that I sleep with every night, my husband Stephen.
There you go.
Yeah, good taste. You can tell. You can tell,
right?
Dan. Can't
no,
you?
That song that song just hits me right in the feels.
Oh, right in the feels, and you can tell that's a guitarist who's well loved.
Right. Tell me about Zombie Blizzard. What was the inspiration behind creating this album?
I was very keen to make a commentary on what the North American classical aesthetic even is. I think for those of you who may not be super down on the classical jive, it can be kind of intimidating to wonder whether or not this is the concert to come to. And I can say confidently, yes, simply because Aaron Davis has married his music with Margaret Atwood's poetry, and we're performing as a jazz trio with soprano, which is me. Spoiler alert.
It's not me, I'll guarantee you that.
And we, but I mean, you're my understudy. Everybody knows
fair
that.
enough, right? Okay.
Right, and you'll get to hear Margaret Atwood, a recording of her reciting her own poetry, followed by me singing that same poetry. And the cycle is 7 songs, which I call concert arias. And that might make the classical, like, glitterati mad, because it's not technically what they would define it as, but I don't care. At this point in my career, I call something a thing, and that makes it the thing. And so I'm really excited about this intersectionality of like jazz, but with my classical voice and with the contemporary poetry of Margaret's last collection of poetry called Dearly. And the poems I selected to have them composed really run the gamut of the female experience. So you have a woman mourning the deterioration of her mother. So Margaret talks about, that's Blizzard. Mm-hmm. And Zombie talks about the nature of poetry. So the first line of Zombie says, "There you have it, Zombie. Didn't you always suspect poetry is the past that breaks out in our hearts like a virus, like an infection?" And that's why the cycle is called Zombie Blizzard.
Mm. What is the, you mentioned seven poems and 7 numbers, I guess is the way to say it. What can the fans expect? Is it going to be all really, dark, or is there some light parts in it? Like, how does that all work?
Oh my goodness. No one could have all darkness if it involves Margaret Atwood.
Right?
She's so wry. She's so of course, insightful. It's the economy of words is incredibly beautiful. She paints such gorgeous word pictures, but then you combine it with the jazzy, classical-esque kind of gospel-y aesthetic of Aaron Davis, who you'll recognize as being the music director of Manteca, of the Holly Cole Trio, and we have made half a dozen albums together, the last of which was Misha Jazz. And again, it's jazz because we say it is. This is no classification necessarily. It is an intimate experience where we're singing the words of Margaret Atwood, and I call, send to voice, because it's real life here.
It is. This is live radio. We only get one take.
Yeah, that's right. There's no more takes. I don't get better with more takes, so that's a good thing. But we're celebrating our North American aesthetic, which I like to call unity. So you'll hear classical vibes, you'll hear jazz vibes, you'll hear undercurrents of gospel in this cycle of 7 songs. And Aaron Davis has written it for me. And I would say, next to Michael Tilson Thomas, another American composer who has composed extensively for me, Aaron Davis, or my gorgeous Canadian equivalent, knows my voice better than anyone else. So it runs the gamut of my range. And I've just become comfortable with the blessing of versatility, the fact that you want to suck people into this experience and let the poetry speak for itself. And what's relaxing for the listener is that we play Margaret reciting her own poetry. You hear a poem, you hear Zombie, you hear Misha sing Aaron's composition. You play a poem of Margaret reciting her own poetry, you hear Misha singing Aaron's composition. And that's how the concert runs down. And then in the second half, you have selections from my new double album called Laureate, which was released in honor of me receiving the Governor General's Lifetime Achievement Award in classical music. I released that double album along with Zombie Blizzard just to provide my opinion, my snapshot of where my artistry is right now, what I'm thinking classical music is, what I believe classical music has the potential to be. And that's what we're really trying to share and welcome people into that experience.
Misha, we're just about out of time, but we can say Carnegie Hall, Kennedy Center, Wigmore Hall, London, and now the stage at the Carlton. Your career is complete.
Oh, praise God. Listen, we come from debuting it in New York on the 28th, and then we come to the Carlton on the 31st, and then we're in Wolfville on November 6th at the church. It's a 3-city mini tour of my favorite places.
Love it. Misha, appreciate the time, and we'll see you on the 31st.
Thank you, Dan. Have a great day.
You too. Oh, boy. Misha Bruger-Grossman-Lee. It's tickets are on sale. It's at the Carlton. It's Halloween, 7:30. You don't want to miss it. Need to stop and take a break. When we come back, a look at the weekend weather. Alistair Alders is in. We're back in minutes. Welcome back to the Todd Veinotte Show. Dan Alstrand along with you. I'm looking out the window right now, and I'm seeing a partly cloudy sky and a little bit of a breeze out there. It doesn't look like it's a bad day, but there is a special weather statement in effect. And there was a pretty spectacular event that happened in and around the area last night, even though I missed it. Let's welcome our weather specialist, Alistair Alders, into the show. Alistair, how are you?
I'm good, Dan. How are you?
I missed the Northern Lights last night.
I didn't. It was amazing.
Right?
It was truly amazing.
The way that I was awake during it, but I think the way that the windows of my apartment are orientated, I had the window like the blinds up off the window. I was reading and prepping for the show today, and I didn't see a dang thing.
Yeah, I live in just outside of the Halifax area, and where I was like, well, I don't think I'll see it here, so I'll drive a bit to an area where it's a bit higher up. I ended up at Vinegar Hill in Milford and higher up and no obstruction. And when I first got there, it was like, don't really see anything. I, took my camera out. I was like, oh, maybe there's a hint of color. Waited a few minutes, and all of a sudden it just exploded. You could see it on the horizon and then overhead. It lasted, 15 to 25, maybe 30 minutes, and then it did kind of quiet down a bit. You could still see it a bit faintly, but not as vibrant as it was. Although, because I had to come home and obviously sleep to be on the air this morning. But I did hear from people that, after 11, 12 o'clock last night, it did ramp back up. It was spectacular. So many people got to see it. It's just very exciting.
It's and I said this off the top of the show. I grew up in Northern Ontario, so the Northern Lights there are kind of well, they're not like an everyday thing, but it's it happens quite frequently. So I have seen them with my own eyes before, but I can imagine just seeing some of the pictures. Saw your pictures, Alistair, and I saw some pictures from Nikki Jabor, who used to be the Weekend Gardener here. She saw some pretty cool colors, and it's bizarre because where I come from, normally those lights are like a greeny kind of, olive. Mm-hmm. And these ones were really vibrant. They were red and pink. Must have been cool to see.
It was incredible. And like you said, usually it is, you see the greenish yellows. You don't often see the pink and red. And that was at least where I was. That was the dominant color, was the pink and the purple, and essentially because the solar storm was so powerful, we were able to get those colors that we don't usually see. So it was truly spectacular. It was amazing.
All right, Alistair, there's some rumors going around that we may see something tonight. Is there a chance of us seeing anything tonight?
Well, I don't want to dash hopes, but
you're going to anyway.
I'm going to. Because the coronal mass ejection, which caused all of this, arrived at Earth yesterday afternoon. Around the time we're talking is when it arrived yesterday. The best part of it was last night. They're still expecting G1 level storm activity tonight. Compared to last night, we had G4 level. So there is a chance that we might be able to see it faintly, or you might be able to capture it with your camera. But really, unless, other geomagnetic aspects come together and things get re-energized, I definitely don't think it will be as great of a show tonight. I wouldn't expect it to be really visible to the eye like it was last night. Like I said, maybe with a long exposure on your camera, you might be able to pick it up. But it's not looking as great tonight compared to last night. And I mean, space weather is more unpredictable than forecasting weather here. So, things can change. It really comes down to, keeping an eye on those aurora forecasts on websites and apps you can download onto your phone to see what activity is like. And if, it looks like things are good and it's telling you to go outside and take a look, well, certainly it's worth a try. I just don't think it will be favorable tonight for the space weather conditions to align. The good news, if things do change, the weather is looking good. It's supposed to clear up through the afternoon. The skies will be clear this evening, and overnight tonight, mainly clear skies. So if we do happen to see it, at least, maybe faintly with your camera, the weather here on Earth should be pretty good.
Alistair, tell me about the special weather statement that's out with wind on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, they're always a little controversial, those special weather statements. But essentially, I've been talking about on the morning and afternoon news this week, we have this upper level low that's spinning near Newfoundland and Labrador. It's a very, intense upper level low. And when you get those strong low pressure systems, the isobars around the low tighten and you get more wind. And it has been quite breezy the last few days. The winds are also picking up today. But essentially what we have happening is we have another area of low pressure feeding into this upper level low as we move through Saturday, and that's going to bring an increase in wind speeds as we go through certainly Saturday afternoon and through the evening hours. Essentially, the special weather statement is in effect, I think at least. I don't know for sure because Environment Canada issues them, because there is the possibility that perhaps on exposed coastlines in southwestern Nova Scotia, the winds could possibly top 90 kilometers per hour, which is wind warning criteria. But essentially, from Halifax, Colchester, Hants on westward through to the southwest, we're going to be looking at peak wind gusts on Saturday between 50 and 70 kilometers per hour, localized winds gusting up to 80 kilometers per hour. And like I said, wouldn't completely rule out that maybe gusts reach the warning criteria on the southwest coast of Nova Scotia. Farther east, it will be breezy, but except for northern Cape Breton, I don't expect the winds to get as strong, although still breezy, gusting up to 50, 60 kilometers per hour. We're getting more wind from the system. We'll have a few showers in Halifax tomorrow afternoon, not a whole lot of rain. The trade-off is that northern and eastern areas of Nova Scotia will get more rain, breezy, but not as strong of winds overall.
About the rest of the weekend, Alistair, Sunday looking sunny from what I gather.
Yeah, Sunday's the pick of the weekend if you're looking for a day that is dry, mainly sunny, because this upper level low is finally going to start moving out. So we will be between systems on Sunday, so mainly sunny and a little bit below normal, but a nice fall day, 12 degrees the high on Sunday. Thanksgiving Monday, unfortunately, the weather does change again. We have another low pressure system coming in. That will keep skies pretty cloudy, and periods of rain will develop throughout the day on Monday. And that could come with the risk of a thunder shower, too. Does come with a bit of a warm-up as we get into the warm sector of that system, as this low will be a bit farther west this time. But certainly, rainy, breezy on Thanksgiving Monday. A bit mild, but temperatures will fall back down behind that system. And this one's also going to stall near Newfoundland and Labrador, so we have another upper-level low as the one we have now departs on Sunday. This one on Monday will move in, and it will stall there really probably for at least till the middle of next week before it finally decides to move on out of here.
Alistair, obviously this time of the year is prime leaf viewing time.
Mm-hmm.
With just a big change I've noticed over the last week or so, where with some of the colors getting into full steam. Is this wind event that we're going to see on Saturday kind of wipe that out, or are they still, do you think, strong enough that they should survive and we'll get more colors for at least another week or so?
I think it really depends on where you are. I mean, like you said, the colors are changing, and in some areas I think they're somewhat peaking a bit early this year. I went on a bit of a drive last weekend, and in some areas, there wasn't a whole lot of change, but in many areas there was a lot of change. So unfortunately, I mean, it is going to be quite windy on Saturday. I do think, we will lose quite a few leaves on Saturday. Perhaps the good news is not all trees have changed over their color yet. So if you're in a spot where there's been very little or minimal change, I think, we'll see more leaves hold on. But even just where I am, some of the trees that have peaked and are now passing, the leaves have been blowing off in the afternoon breeze. So, I mean, I definitely think the leaves will take a bit of a hit this weekend, unfortunately, although in locations where we're not quite near the peak, or they're just peaking now, they might be able to hold on just a bit longer. We'll hope for that, because obviously it's a very popular time of year for people to go leaf viewing, because it's so beautiful this time of year. And the colors have been pretty nice so far on the trees that have changed.
Alistair, the F word. I hear from gardeners all the time when you and I chat. Are we going to get frost? Are we going to get frost?
Well, I guess the good news is that it has been a bit brisk out there first thing in the morning, but this upper level low has been keeping a bit of cloud cover with us, so it hasn't been able to get as cold at night. I don't really see any widespread frost opportunities through the upcoming weekend and into early next week, although I do think later next week, when the pattern looks to change, a nice ridge of high pressure looks to come in late next week. I do think that's going to come with, clear skies, calm winds, and that's going to really, I think, let our temperatures get quite cool at night. So I'm thinking, perhaps Thursday and beyond is when we'll have to watch for any frost potential next week. I wouldn't rule it out, although at this time of year, it really depends on where you live. If you live along the coast, it really depends on the wind direction. If it's coming in off the ocean, it doesn't get as cold at night. If you live inland, it can get much cooler. So it really just depends on your proximity to the coast. And if you're in a low-lying area, our temperatures are now falling into the single digits for the most part at night. So, we need to keep a very close eye on it, although I don't see any widespread risks at this point in the outlook.
So those that still have tomatoes on the vine are okay, at least for the next couple days?
I would think so, although, obviously keep an eye on your local forecast and just be mindful of that. Here in Halifax tonight, we're down to 9 degrees for the low. So there isn't a risk tonight. I don't see a risk Saturday night or Sunday night or Monday night.
Beautiful.
Fingers crossed it holds off for as long as possible. But obviously, we're in that time of year where it can kind of sneak up on you, especially in those areas that get a bit cooler than, what is usually forecast.
Alistair, the most important question of the day. Turkey or ham?
I've been hearing this. I was wondering if you were going to ask me. Sorry, I am Team Vanessa, and it's turkey all the way.
No, you broke the tie.
Oh, there was a tie. Okay.
Yeah, I was surprised that as many people said ham that they did. I maybe took some liberties with that, but still, you broke the tie and Vanessa wins.
There we go. Turkey for the win.
Alistair, have a fantastic Thanksgiving long weekend. We'll talk to you next week.
You too, Dan. Thanks so much.
That is our weather specialist, Alistair Alders. You can hear him in the morning and the afternoon during the morning news and the afternoon news right here on 95.7 News Radio. When we come back, it's Cecil time. See you in a few minutes.
Axe.
Welcome back to the Tom Veinotte Show. Dan Ahlstrand along with you here on a fabulous Friday edition of the show. Can see the finish line just around the corner. Vanessa is working now to connect up with Cecil so we can talk a little sports. And in the interim, a bunch. Holy smokes, do we get a lot of emails today. And I appreciate you participating in the program. This one from Darren says, "Hey, Dan, you got the Rick Yeehaw in there. Nice touch. I'm with you. I like a good glazed ham dinner over turkey dinner, but I do have to admit that I like turkey leftovers. I like turkey sandwiches, turkey soup, and my most favorite is a hot turkey sandwich. Is there nothing better than a couple pieces of white bread, Ben's bread, with some turkey and some butter, and then just slathered in gravy? Am I making you hungry? Because I really am getting hungry out here. Anyway, thanks to Darren for his email. This one from Kenmo. It says, "I'm not sure what caller Day meant by Thanksgiving is one of the few North American only holidays. So it's Canada Day, July the 4th. Victoria, July the 4th is Canada's the 1st. Anyway, but I imagine he's saying July the 4th is a North American holiday because it's Independence Day in the United States. Victoria Day, Memorial Day, but they're stat holidays." And then he said, "I prefer turkey over ham." And that was from Ken. This from Frank. "Google Halifax Integrated Mobility Plan dashboard. Very comprehensive, worth a look. Average peak bicycle volume. Windsor Street 8, Hollis Street 9, South Street 20, etc. These volumes include both inbound and outbound bike traffic, so the actual number of bikes will be less if the riders took home the same route. Bike enthusiasts will claim more riders will come when routes are complete, but it's simply moving the bar. City Council is like a person with a private pilot's license listening, or rather trying to fly a 747. Don't just have the skills. When they try to perform social engineering, I don't know if I'll go that far, they do more harm than good. Fewer bike lanes, more bus lanes, please." This one from Ken. why did Liberal MP Ken MacDonald, this is in regards to Andy Fillmore and his support of the carbon tax and the Liberal government over the last years. He said, then why? And I said, well, you're Liberal MP, you're told what to do. Why did Liberal MP Ken MacDonald of Newfoundland vote in Parliament against the carbon tax? If MacDonald had the gumption to vote with his conscience and not along party lines, then why can't Andy Fillmore? Again, that one's from Ken. Ian on the Great Debates. He says, I kind of do both. I bake a ham the day before so that we can have Eggs Benedict for breakfast. Oh, Eggs Benedict, right? And then turkey for supper. Now, I will maybe let away a family secret. Hopefully they're not listening today. But my stepmother and dad used to go when all of us kids were home. We're all now kind of spread out across the country, but would go like completely wild on these kind of days. It was not unusual in that house to see, well, it was always a turkey, but it wasn't unusual to also see a ham, to also see some cabbage rolls, to also see some pierogies. You see a bit of a line of where we were going with that anyway, and just, like way too much food, right? But anyway, thanks to Ian for the email. This one from Joyce. People talk about Fillmore being liberal. Are they aware that Chender campaigns for Mason? I don't know if she does. Maybe she does. I'll have to dig into that. Maybe she'll join the show next week and tell us a little about it. This one from Ron. I tried to listen to the candidates vying to be mayor. I'm sure there are some good people running, as there always has been. I have the advantage of being a former employee in the planning department since 1979 for 30 plus years. And many other platforms I've heard, every comment has of why I'm the best person to become mayor. Little has changed in 30 plus years. This is a giant municipality from Hubbards to Seacombe, not Musquenabbit Harbor, as one recently stated on your show. Amalgamation was a correct move. Well, that's a controversial statement. But from what I hear callers complaining about things and why the previous council's decision were incorrect or poorly adopted, I shake my head. Halifax is not the center of HRM, but it may be a bit spoiled. I think Gloria McCluskey would agree with that. HRM doesn't always have what other cities have. A new mayor and council have to stop their spending practices, raise the tax rate to cover their decisions is not the answer. Mother Hubbard's cupboard, I got that out. That's hard to say. Mother Hubbard's cupboard will soon be empty. Governments often say they know what their residents want. I question this approach considering that most of us have never been asked. And that one is from Ron. Mark, in regards to the comments I made, I think one of our callers in the open hour was talking about the aid money that we're sending to Lebanon in light of the events there, and that we send money to Israel, and it's kind of a unique dichotomy, I think, if that's the right term. Anyway, I said that nothing will get changed in those conflicts if we keep blowing stuff up. Mark took exception to that. He said that Hezbollah terrorists will never stop their quest to eliminate all Jews from the face of the planet. So to say, just put your toys down and stop the fighting is a pipe dream. Until we stomp out all terrorist groups around the world, the world war is inevitable. Israel has every right to defend itself now into the future. And that's from Mark. Mark, I will agree with you that Israel does have a right to defend itself, but are we ever going to accomplish anything by destroying stuff? And stomping out Hamas and stomping out Hezbollah and creating humanitarian crises in both of those countries in the interim, don't think that that's going to generate a lot of meaningful discussion from the people that are displaced. And I think until we stop blowing stuff up as a solution, and I'm looking at both sides here, because he's right, Hezbollah has launched a bunch of missiles into Israel. We know about the October 7th event, but this escalation of violence will not solve anything. We'll just kick the can down the road to the next generation and the next generation and the next generation. Until there's meaningful dialogue and we come up with a solution to these issues at the bargaining table, not at the missile launcher, that's the way it's going to be, because this kind of violence never solves anything. Thank you to everyone that took time out of their day, and that's the end of my tirade for today. Thank you to everyone that took time out of their day to join the show. Dial the numbers. You make my day each and every day that you do it. Thank you very much to Vanessa Vandenez on the other side of the glass, keeping the show somewhat moving in the right direction. Hope you all have a fantastic Thanksgiving weekend. Spend some time with your friends and your family and enjoy what Nova Scotia has, because we are so very lucky to live where we are. Have a great weekend, everyone. And remember, be kind to one another.